Welcome back to the deep dive. We often talk about goals, in terms of what we want to achieve. Start a business, maybe, master a skill, save some money. But today, we're cutting a bit deeper past the goal itself to the real driving engine behind it. Our mission today is really to understand the connection between your underlying values and, well, the quality of your satisfaction. And it seems to hinge entirely on the direction of your motivation.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a powerful distinction, actually,
Mm.
because most people, I think, assume if they value something like, let's say, success, they'll feel satisfied when they achieve it. Simple, right? But the source material we looked at shows that the quality of life isn't purely tied to the value itself. It's more about whether the motivation for chasing that value is fundamentally positive or negative. That direction really is the difference maker.
Okay, so we're asking ourselves, is our action driven by a pull towards something good? That's the positive motivation or approach. Or is it driven by like a desperate push away from something bad, that negative motivation or avoidance? It sounds simple, but you're saying this changes everything. Okay, let's unpack this. Maybe start with the negative side.
Avoidance.
Sure. Negative motivation or avoidance. Well, it's action that stems from wanting to escape something undesirable.
Yeah.
It could be anything, really physical discomfort, maybe a perceived lack of something, fear, insecurity. The key characteristic here, I think, is that the individual is purely reactive. They're not proactively seeking growth or something better. They are constantly just reacting to threats, real or imagined. They're driven by what they want to prevent.
Right, and I think the most striking thing about this avoidance motivation is how it can kind of hijack even really constructive, positive-sounding values. The goal looks good on the surface, but the internal engine is just fueled by fear. And the source has had some incredible examples of this across, like, core human values.
Yes, absolutely. Let's take security, for example. A
Yeah.
person motivated positively might pursue financial stability because they value the freedom that comes with having options.
Right.
But the negatively motivated person, they're focused on the fear of destitution. Their thought is, I don't want to lose what I have. Or maybe on a relationship level, it's, I don't want to be lonely. See, it's all focused on defense.
And even if both people end up saving the same amount of money, the person motivated by that fear lives under this constant shadow, doesn't it? The potential loss makes saving feel stressful, not empowering.
Precisely. Or think about achievement. The positive driver is mastery, contribution, maybe making a difference. But the negative driver, that's often the fear of inadequacy. It comes out as, I don't want to fall behind my peers, or that really harsh internal voice saying, I don't want them to think I'm mediocre. I'm entirely driven by external validation, or maybe just the fear of external judgment.
So it twists the pursuit of excellence into this kind of self-critical defense mechanism. And even something as basic as health, that seems prone to this too. It's often not, I want to feel vital and strong and really experience life fully, but just, I don't want to be sick or I don't want to gain weight. The effort is aimed squarely at avoiding the negative thing, not embracing the positive state.
Exactly. And the list goes on, even with values that seem fun, like adventure. The avoidance response there is often something like, I don't want to be bored, or that very modern anxiety driver, FOMO, I don't want to miss out.
They end up seeking experiences not really for the joy of discovery, but more to avoid that feeling of static discomfort or missing something.
Okay, so now let's flip the switch.
Yeah.
What happens when we look at positive motivation, the approach direction? The whole internal landscape changes, right? Absolutely, it's a completely different game. This action stems from the desire to realize a desired future state, to experience growth, pleasure, success, genuine satisfaction. These individuals, they define the positive outcome they actually want to create. They're initiators. Their energy is spent moving toward a clear, desired destination, not just, maintaining frantic distance from some looming threat.
Right. And this difference in the internal fuel, it has massive implications for overall life satisfaction, doesn't it? You mentioned earlier the sources describe people operating under chronic negative motivation as existing in a kind of perpetual escape state.
Yeah, that phrase is vital. In a perpetual escape state.
Mm.
Look, you might achieve enormous external success. You really might. You could earn millions because you're terrified of poverty, or hit every career milestone because you're afraid of being seen as a failure. But, and this is the crucial part, you never feel truly successful or satisfied.
Okay, but why is that? If the outcomes look objectively similar, you're financially secure either way, for instance, why does the internal motivation just strip away the fulfillment?
Because the whole mechanism of avoidance is focused on closing a gap or neutralizing a threat. That's its only job. So once the threat is neutralized, you're not poor anymore. Let's say the motivation just stops. Poof. And what happens then? The person immediately starts scanning the horizon for the next potential disaster they need to run from. They're constantly in this state of high alert, fueled by anxiety. You don't actually arrive at a feeling of peace. You just momentarily stop running, which leads to chronic dissatisfaction, exhaustion. You're basically just focused on preventing the collapse, not building the skyscraper.
Wow, yeah, that sounds incredibly draining. Like the moment you achieve the avoidance goal, the reward is simply the temporary absence of pain, not actual pleasure or gain.
Exactly. Now, contrast that with approach motivation. When you're driven by approach, you are actively building something meaningful. Every step taken toward that positive goal provides incremental satisfaction and energy. It fuels you. Your life feels characterized by fulfillment and initiative because the objective itself is defined as a gain, not just the elimination of a loss.
Okay, so as the quality of our internal life really hinges on this direction, the critical question becomes, how do we figure out if we're living in that escape state? This is where the analysis gets really tactical and interesting, I think.
It does, and the sources suggest a really potent, surprisingly simple diagnostic tool. Ask yourself the deep question about your own motivations. Take a major goal you have or an important value and really ask, why is this important to me?
And you have to be brutally honest with the answer, right? No sugarcoating. If your health goal is important, so I don't get sick, or your job is important, so I don't get fired, that negative phrasing is a pretty clear signal. It's avoidance motivation at work, focused entirely on the potential negative outcome.
Conversely, if the answer is framed positively, to be financially free, maybe, or to feel vibrant and energetic, that's your signal for approach motivation. The language we use, even just in our own heads, it literally dictates the direction of our drive.
But it's not always that obvious, is it? Beyond just using not or don't, the sources also pointed out several more subtle signs, linguistic tics, behavioral things that indicate you might be running away, even if you think you're using positive words.
That's a great point. One of the biggest subtle signs is an equilibrium focus. This is where your effort is primarily dedicated to avoiding extremes, avoiding being too poor, avoiding working too hard, avoiding too much stress. You're just seeking balance or equilibrium, but that isn't really growth. It's just aiming for stasis. It's like you're trying to keep the boat from sinking rather than actually plotting a course to a new continent.
Yeah, I recognize that feeling. It's keeping my head above water. Feels safe, maybe, but doesn't actually take me anywhere new.
Another fascinating signal relates to the language we use. The modal operators of necessity. Bit of a technical term, but it just means words like must, should, or need to. These often act as markers for external compulsion or feeling forced. When you say, I must go to the gym, it sounds like a burden, right? Imposed from the outside, a necessity to avoid some negative consequence. It's very different from an internal desire, like, I want the feeling of strength the gym gives me.
Yeah, that must or should turns it into a chore, basically. Drains the enjoyment right out of it.
Precisely. We also see something called comparative deletion. This is where your motivation is tied entirely to comparing yourself to others. Language like, I need to earn more than my brother, or I can't be less successful than my old classmates. The source of your motivation isn't your own definition of success, it's just the fear of losing some kind of comparative race.
Right. And finally, the text brought up how heavily a past focus can drive avoidance. Like, if the only reason you're taking action now is to fix or react to a trauma or painful event from the past, maybe you're running a business just to prove wrong someone who doubted you 10 years ago, you're letting a past fear dictate your present instead of defining a future you want.
Yeah, and if that problem state, that past hurt, is the only thing you can clearly articulate as your why, you're almost certainly stuck in avoidance.
Okay, so that might sound a bit bleak if you recognize yourself in those descriptions, but the good news is we're not stuck, right? If we identify that we are in that escape state, the sources drawing on principles from things like neuro-linguistic programming offer a way to convert, a process to shift the mental programming.
That's right. The central principle is actually quite straightforward. To achieve a genuinely positive direction, the goal must be defined using positive phrasing. And this effort isn't just cosmetic wordplay. It literally changes the search patterns in your brain. Think about it. If you tell your brain, avoid poverty, it spends all its resources scanning for signs of poverty. That's its job now. But if you tell it to create financial security, it starts looking for opportunities, resources, ways to build. Different focus entirely.
Okay, so the process starts with that deep introspection. They identify the root step you mentioned. Keep asking, why is this important? Until you get down to the raw motivation, the underlying value, even if the answer feels a bit uncomfortable.
Exactly. Get clarity first.
Mhm.
Then once that negative motivation is clearly identified, step two is the reverse phrasing. You deliberately take that negative internal dialogue, that avoidance statement, and you consciously flip it into a positive approach statement.
Okay, let's use those clear examples from the text again. If my current goal direction is really, I don't want to be poor, the conversion is something like, I want to build durable financial security and have options. Hmm. That simple switch means every action I take now is aimed at achieving that robust, defined, positive state, not just dodging the negative one.
Perfect. Or take the peace example. If you realize your motivation is actually, I don't want constant noise and interruption,
Hmm.
you convert that immediately to something like, I want to cultivate serenity, calm, and focused time.
And the moment you make that switch from I don't want noise to I want serenity, the daily actions actually change, don't they? Instead of just defensively reacting every time the phone rings or someone interrupts, you start proactively building a schedule or environment that protects your quiet time. It feels like a massive shift from defense to design.
That is the significance. It shifts the whole cognitive load away from monitoring for pain or threats and towards actively pursuing and building pleasure, growth, the desired state. So the change isn't just academic semantics. It fundamentally changes the quality of your emotional state during the process. And it ensures that when you actually achieve the goal, the reward is genuine fulfillment, not just that momentary relief from fear. So what does this all mean? It means you really have the power to define the emotional tone of your entire leaf journey just by choosing your direction.
Wow. Yeah, this deep dive really shows that awareness of that direction away or toward is maybe the primary lever we have for engineering a genuinely satisfying life.
Absolutely. When we consciously choose approach motivation, we're choosing to live out of proactive choice, initiative, hope,
Hmm.
rather than constantly just reacting and living out of fear. It transforms basically every task and goal from feeling like a defensive obligation into a genuine opportunity for positive construction, building something you want.
Okay, so we want to leave you with one final thought to maybe mull over as you go about your week. Take a moment, maybe later today, and review your top 3 or 4 most significant goals right now. Could be fitness, your biggest professional objective, maybe a relationship commitment, whatever it is for you. And for each one, try to honestly identify how many are currently defined by what you are actively running away from versus what you are intentionally building toward? And if you find one, or maybe more, that are deeply avoidance based, which conversion from that defensive posture to a positive design would have the biggest, most immediate impact on your sense of peace and satisfaction right now? Just something for you to explore this week.